Have you ever saved someone's life? How did it happen? I had a good friend W. Harlot was going through some very stressful times in his life. He began experiencing symptoms of severe anxiety, tension, headaches, feelings of dizziness, and lethargy, RGY. He went to the doctors. W. Harlot prescribed him benzos. He wasn't doing good, and I went over several times to his house and he seemed like he was losing it. I would call him periodically to check in from time to time to see how he was doing and try to calm him. One day I had felt like I had a need to call him right then and there. I called him and he answered crying. I asked how he was doing and he said not good. I went and picked him up. Noticed an empty fifth of whiskey on his dresser. He had always been a heavy drinker, and at that moment I realized that benzos and alcohol don't mix. I took him to the and he was admitted. TT'd. He has a BAC of .36, indicating he was an alcoholic or he would be dead. From there we convinced him to take his SSRIs and go to rehab. On my way to drop him off at rehab he told me, hey man, you're a great friend. I just want you to know that if you hadn't showed up today, I was going to kill myself. That hit me hard. I don't know if this really fits. I needed a kidney. My cousin volunteered. During their testing of her they found a small mass they thought was just fat. It turned out to be cancer. Most kidney cancer apparently is not caught until it's too late, because your other kidney takes on the work and you don't get symptoms. She was able to get it all removed and is now cancer free. Didn't even need chemo, just surgery. Anyway, she claims I saved her life. I claim she saved her own by being willing to donate. I'm a doctor. Even then I can count the number of times I can say I've saved someone's life on one hand with fingers left over. I was working at an athletics event. After a long distance running event that was open entry, a person collapsed and stopped breathing. I worked with my team to stabilize them and transfer them to hospital. They needed support for their airway to keep breathing. Had they not had it, they would have asphyxiated and died. I met them with their spouse and 8-year child a few months later, actually on this day a few years ago. That was the biggest reward for me. The best feeling. I'd reply that doctors save lives every day with their diagnosis and the healing. Before ailments escalate to something more serious. Edit. Extending that to all workers in the medical field. You are all warriors. Was in the middle of a neighborhood pool and watched a toddler at the side of the pool, 10-foot end, take his floats off and then jump in the water. He curled up like a ball and began to sink quickly. I was able to reach him before he reached the bottom. He was scared but screaming. The babysitter was on her phone. OMG, that is my nightmare. Thank you on behalf of his parents. One day in college, I was on my way to grab dinner with some friends and ran into another friend in the parking lot. I invited him to come with me and join us, and we proceeded to have a totally unremarkable dinner in the cafe. Years later, post-graduation, we were hanging out one night getting a bit drunk and stoned, and he confessed to me that he was on his way to kill himself that night when I ran into him. My oh my, good for him that you crossed his path. We just never know how we can make an impact in someone else's life. A few friends and I saved a tourist family from drowning while surfing on the island of Oahu. We had been surfing an outer reef on the south shore that was a good half-mile or so off the coast when we noticed a family paddling out on a kayak. A single-person kayak with a dad, younger daughter maybe 8 and a son maybe 12 on the nose and tail, and with an older teenage son paddling behind on a boogie board. They paddled directly into an area of the reef where 4/5 foot waves were crashing very fast and very powerfully onto pretty much dry reef. It took only seconds for us to see them go from paddling along in the kayak to seeing them all bobbing in the waves in the kayak 200 yards away. Stuck on the reef, we quickly paddled across the channel as fast as we could. We then each gave on of the kids and the dad outboards and pulled them by our leashes far enough into the lagoon and they could walk. About 100 yards or so. I vividly remember the dad saying him not panicking over and over in a thick Russian accent and having to reassure him that he'd be okay, but needs to focus on what we were doing. Just goes to show how dangerous the ocean is, and how deadly it could been for that family if we weren't there. This gave me so much anxiety reading it. Good for you for noticing and thinking/acting so quickly. People act so dumb in the ocean sometimes. It can be calming, beautiful and peaceful, but it can turn so quickly and be unforgiving. I told my father he has to go see a doctor or I would force him. He was super tired all the time. Turns out he had cancer and his liver was about to fail. I really hope this turned out well. Good on you to notice something amiss. Happy holidays, friend. I'm a peds nurse, and I got a post-op patient. She was 9 years old and was having a second revision surgery to her cleft palate repair. A year prior, a different end had tried to take tissue from her throat and add it to her palate to prevent as much airflow as possible. This was considered cosmetic because the airflow was causing the patient to have a high Minnie Mouse voice. That surgery did not work as the graft failed. No other ent would try it again. But a new ent moved to town and agreed to try. She was stable when they brought her to my floor. Obviously in pain, drooling, but stable. She used a board to write and told her dad she was hungry. I had not even finished checking her into the computer 10 minutes when I heard what I assumed was phlegm in her throat. This can be common after surgery because of intubation, especially when your throat has just been operated on. Her dad and I encouraged her to gently cough and spit out the mucus, as it was getting harder for her to breathe. She gently coughed, gave me an absolute look of panic, passed out, and the pool of blood came out of her mouth so quickly it made a continuous stream of blood onto the floor. I called a code immediately, repositioned her, and suctioned her throat so she could breathe. The suction canister began to fill with blood and I knew she was dying. I called another code for blood bank so they could send me 6 units stat. At this point the blood was copious, and after she stopped breathing, I began to bag her, manually ventilate, and her blood sprayed everywhere in a fine mist. That night I washed my face and found tiny blood droplets stuck to my eyelashes. It was on the ceiling of her room. Trying to ventilate a hemorrhaging surgical site is not something anyone is prepared for. My team and I worked to stabilize her, provided CPR for 20 minutes, and transfused her all the way down to, or where her surgeon had rushed to meet us. He cauterized the bleeders, and at the debriefing admitted she had bled a lot in the oar, and had used 3x the normal amount of lidocaine to get it to finally stop. Those lidocaine doses all wore off, right when I got her on the floor. So it was no surprise she bled. Our hospital changed its policy to only allow palate repairs or any oral/airway post-op risk surgery patient to remain in PICU overnight with an oral airway at bedside in case of code. My patient survived, took a big neuro hit, but finally could qualify for rehab. Went for months and now can ride a bike, ski, and is almost caught up in school. I thank God every day I was in her room when it happened, or she wouldn't be here during the mayhem. Her mother fainted in the corner of the room and her dad stood across her bed, screaming in my face, "She's dying. Do something." Over and over. I could feel his breath blowing my hair back, but my vision had narrowed and I blocked him out in order to focus on what I needed to quickly do for my patient. Very stressful. Wow. That is so impressive. I'm glad you could stay calm and let your training kick in. You're a hero. Was eating dinner with my kid. I think she was maybe 4 at the time. She started choking. I quickly shot my hand into her abdomen up, and in mimicking a hemorrhage, whatever it was she was eating came flying out of her mouth. Once she was good, the stress got me, and I went and cried in the bathroom for a couple minutes. I worked in a med lab. My job was to go over the doctor's orders and make sure everything was correct. They missed a potassium test, so I ran and got that order. Turned out to be lethally high. Tech called the doctor at 2 in the morning. Doc got the patient to the hospital. Well played. Single-handedly, twice. Once on baby with RSV. The pulse ox kept going off. My coworker just went in and shut it off. It went off again. I actually looked at baby in mom's arms, and he had that whole him not breathing look. Snatched him out of mom's arms and started mouth to mouth on the crib until the code team could get there. No ambu bag because that hospital had decided it was too expensive to put one of each size at the bedside. My gift RSV a week later. Second time was a guy W Harlotod in the bathroom at Walmart. I just kept his airway open and best on his chest when he would quit breathing. Quite a few others as part of a team. Especially, LLY. When I was probably about 12 or 13 I saved my 4-year brother's life. We were in Oregon for spring break as a family and were watching the ocean waves on the beach. Suddenly an enormous rogue wave came out of nowhere and it pushed us all the way up the beach and against the cliffs. As the water rushed out I saw my brother tumbling in the surge, so I lunged and grabbed him with one arm and held on for dear life to a big rock with the other. My shoes, jacket and wallet along with other family members' belongings were all swept out to sea. But I still have a brother, way more important than a wallet and shoes. My dad and I were on vacation in Paris a couple years ago, walking by the river. There weren't that many people around, jet lag. We were up early, and this girl jogged by us with her dog off leash. A couple of ducks saw the dog coming about 30 feet ahead of us, and went into the water. Dog goes in after ducks. Girl goes in after dog. Because it was the Seine in the middle of Paris and the banks are all paved down. Apparently, steep. Neither of them could get up on their own right. We pulled them both out, one after the other, and then this husky the size of a dire wolf had the nerve to shake off all over us. Probably they would have figured it out if we hadn't been there, or someone else would have heard the yelling in time to help them. Still, it's a fun story. Leash your dogs, kids. Not me, but my son. He got his lifeguard certification and started work at our local pool. On his very first shift he pulled a drowning kid out. I almost burst with pride. At 16 he accomplished something more important than anything I've done in my 50+ years. That was 3 years ago. He's done it twice more since then. I could spend 100 lifetimes working at only the best things. Science, technology, cancer cures the lot, and I would not have accomplished half as much as a successful parent. You, my friend, have accomplished more than you give yourself credit for. If you love your kids and your kids love you, then you've done everything right and accomplished more important things than most 3. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.